Have you ever set out to change a habit, determined to finally make a difference in your life, only to find yourself right back where you started? Maybe you've tried waking up early, exercising daily, or eating healthier. You start strong, inspired by the promise of transformation, but somewhere along the way, the motivation fades and old patterns creep back in. James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, claims to hold the secret to sustainable change through small, consistent actions. It's one of the most popular self-help books of the decade, selling millions of copies worldwide and inspiring countless readers to rethink their approach to habits. But is it really the ultimate guide to behavior change, or does it oversimplify a complex human process? In this video, we will take a deep dive into Atomic Habits, breaking down its core concepts, evaluating its strengths, and most importantly, critically examining the areas where it falls short. We'll explore real-life applications, discuss why some habits stick while others fail, and challenge the idea that small changes are the answer to life's biggest challenges. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The appeal of Atomic Habits. One of the reasons Atomic Habits resonates with so many people is its promise of simplicity. James Clear doesn't just tell you to build habits, he tells you exactly how to do it. The book's core philosophy is that small, incremental improvements, just 1% better every day, lead to remarkable long-term results. The concept feels intuitive. Instead of making drastic changes overnight, you focus on tiny adjustments that seem manageable. Clear emphasizes that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement, accumulating over time to create significant change. But does this approach work for everyone? And can such a simplified model truly account for the complexity of human behavior? We'll address these questions as we explore both the practical applications and the limitations of this popular framework. Chapter 2. The 4 Laws of Behavior Change. The backbone of Atomic Habits is the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. Clear's premise is straightforward. If you want to build good habits or break bad ones, follow these rules. Let's break down each law and see how they play out in real life. Law 1. Make it obvious. The idea here is to make the cues that trigger habits clear and visible. For instance, if you want to drink more water, place a water bottle on your desk as a constant reminder. While this sounds reasonable, does visibility alone guarantee habit formation? In reality, our brains are more complex, and motivation doesn't always align with cues. We'll dive deeper into why simply making something obvious doesn't always lead to action. Law 2. Make it attractive. To increase the likelihood of performing a habit, you must make it appealing. Clear suggests using temptation bundling, pairing a habit you want to build with something you already enjoy. While this can be effective, it also raises questions about long-term sustainability. For example, pairing a workout with listening to your favorite podcast might work initially, but what happens when the novelty of the podcast fades? Does the habit lose its charm? Law 3. Make it easy. This principle focuses on reducing friction. The simpler and more accessible a habit is, the more likely you are to do it. Clear recommends strategies like the 2-minute rule, making habits so easy that they seem almost effortless. However, does simplifying tasks always lead to lasting change? We'll examine whether reducing friction truly addresses deeper motivational issues. Law 4, make it satisfying. Clear emphasizes that positive reinforcement is crucial. Ending a habit with a reward makes it more likely to stick. Yet this idea can be problematic when the reward itself becomes a distraction or when the habit relies solely on external gratification. Chapter 3, the practical impact versus theoretical assumptions. While the 4 laws present a structured path, their effectiveness may vary based on individual circumstances. Real-life complexities such as mental health, socioeconomic factors, and deep-seated psychological patterns challenge the idea that habit formation is simply a matter of making things obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Many people find that even when following the 4 laws, old habits return, especially when faced with stress or emotional turmoil. We'll discuss why habit formation, as outlined in Atomic Habits, may not fully account for these challenges. Chapter 4, the power and pitfalls of habit stacking. One of the key strategies presented in Atomic Habits is habit stacking, linking a new habit to an existing one. For instance, if you want to start meditating, you might do it right after brushing your teeth. The logic is that by tying a new action to an established routine, it becomes easier to adopt. However, habit stacking assumes that existing habits are consistent and not influenced by external factors. What if the established habit itself falters? Can the new habit survive on its own? We will investigate this aspect and examine whether habit stacking truly sustains long-term behavioral change. Chapter 5. The complexity of human motivation. One of the fundamental critiques of Atomic Habits is its simplified view of motivation. While clear focuses on building habits through cues and rewards, real human motivation is deeply intertwined with emotional, social, and psychological factors. What happens when motivation is disrupted by trauma, anxiety, or life changes? This chapter will explore why the book's practical approach may not always align with real-world challenges. Chapter 6, Real-Life Stories and Contradictions. While Atomic Habits offers a blueprint for change, real-life stories often defy its principles. Some individuals succeed through methods contrary to the 4 laws, while others fail despite meticulous adherence. We'll explore real-world examples where clear strategies either succeeded unexpectedly or failed despite diligent application. Chapter 12, the neuroscience behind habit formation. Fully understand the concepts presented in Atomic Habits, it's essential to examine the neuroscience behind habit formation. James Clear often refers to the brain's role in automating behaviors, but his explanations can sometimes lack depth. Understanding how habits form at a neurological level, particularly how the brain's reward systems work, can help us critically assess whether the 4 laws adequately address the complexity of human cognition. This chapter will delve into the brain's habit loop, cue, routine, and reward, and discuss how Clear's methodology aligns or conflicts with established neurological research. We will also explore whether simplifying complex neurological processes into actionable steps does justice to the intricate mechanisms involved. Chapter 13, Cultural and Societal Influences on Habits. Atomic Habits largely approaches behavior change from an individualistic perspective. However, culture and society play a significant role in shaping our habits. For example, social norms, collective values, and cultural upbringing significantly impact what we perceive as desirable or achievable habits. This chapter will critically assess how Clear's strategies might be influenced by Western notions of individual success and whether the book's principles translate well to non-Western or collectivist cultures. We'll discuss how habits rooted in cultural practices may require different strategies for change. Chapter 14. The myth of quick fixes. One of the underlying appeals of Atomic Habits is the notion that small, consistent changes can lead to significant transformation. While this idea is motivational, it risks fostering the illusion of a quick fix. Many readers may approach the book with the hope that implementing a few simple changes will revolutionize their lives. We will analyze how this mindset can backfire, especially when individuals encounter setbacks. By focusing on the long-term nature of meaningful change rather than the allure of instant success, we aim to present a more realistic outlook on habit transformation. Chapter 15. Atomic Habits in the context of modern self-help. James Clear's book has become a cornerstone in the modern self-help genre, appealing to those seeking practical, no-nonsense advice. However, it's essential to place it within the broader context of self-help literature. How does it compare to other influential works, such as Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit or Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Chapter 16. The Ethical Implications of Habit Manipulation. While Atomic Habits emphasizes the power of small changes to improve personal and professional lives, it also opens up an ethical debate about habit manipulation. The book encourages readers to take control of their habits through conscious effort and strategic planning. But what about using these techniques on others? For instance, marketing strategies often exploit habitual behavior to influence consumer decisions. This chapter will explore the ethical line between personal habit formation and the manipulation of others, discussing how companies and organizations might use Clear's principles for profit rather than personal growth. Chapter 7. The Role of Failure in Habit Formation. James Clear often highlights the importance of perseverance and consistency, but one critical aspect that seems underexplored in Atomic Habits is the role of failure. Building habits is rarely a linear process, and setbacks are inevitable. While Clear does touch on overcoming obstacles, the book could benefit from a more nuanced discussion about how to deal with repeated failures. In this chapter, we will discuss the psychological effects of habit failure, the importance of resilience, and how learning from failure can sometimes be more transformative than success. We will also analyze why Clear's approach might inadvertently create feelings of guilt or inadequacy when habits don't form as expected. Chapter 18. Why Habits Aren't Always Enough. Clear's approach centers on the idea that small, consistent changes can produce monumental results. However, there are situations where habits alone aren't enough to achieve meaningful change. For instance, dealing with trauma, overcoming addiction, or managing chronic mental health conditions often requires more than just habit restructuring. This chapter will address how psychological and social complexities can hinder the effectiveness of habit-based strategies. We'll also examine when deeper therapeutic interventions might be necessary and why the book's focus on incremental progress may not resonate with everyone. Chapter 19. Atomic Habits and the Productivity Trap. One of the subtle risks associated with the popularity of Atomic Habits is the potential to fall into the productivity trap. In today's culture, The relentless pursuit of self-optimization can become exhausting. While the book encourages efficiency, it may inadvertently foster a mindset where every moment must be productive. This chapter will explore the potential downside of equating personal worth with productivity and discuss how a balanced approach to habits can protect mental well-being. We'll question whether the pursuit of habit perfection might lead to burnout rather than sustainable growth. Chapter 20: The Real Cost of Habit Change. Changing habits can sometimes come at a personal cost, whether it's sacrificing social interactions for gym time or losing spontaneous creativity in favor of rigid routines. Atomic Habits encourages structured behavior, but what happens when this structure conflicts with the unpredictable nature of human life? We will discuss how the quest for habit mastery can sometimes erode spontaneity and how excessive focus on efficiency might neglect other vital aspects of human experience. This chapter will challenge readers to balance habit formation with the richness of unplanned moments. Chapter 21: The Psychological Burden of Perfectionism. One of the subtle messages within Atomic Habits is the idea of continuous self-improvement. While this can be motivating, it also risks fostering perfectionism. The pursuit of flawless routines and consistent habits might pressure individuals into feeling inadequate when they fall short. In this chapter, we will explore how the relentless quest for self-optimization can paradoxically lead to lower self-esteem and burnout. We will examine the psychological effects of aiming for perfection and discuss alternative approaches that balance growth with self-acceptance. Chapter 22: Individual Differences and Habit Formation. Atomic Habits largely presents a one-size-fits-all model for habit change. However, personality traits, cognitive styles, and individual differences significantly influence how people respond to habit-building strategies. What works for one person may not work for another due to variations in motivation, emotional resilience, and even genetic predispositions. This chapter will critically assess whether the 4 laws are adaptable to diverse personality types and how acknowledging individuality can lead to more tailored and effective habit change strategies. Chapter 23: The Paradox of Small Wins. Sobs-Clear's philosophy emphasizes the accumulation of small wins to achieve significant transformations. While this approach can build momentum, it may also lead to complacency when people mistake small progress for substantial change. In this chapter, we will discuss how focusing too much on minor achievements can sometimes distract from long-term goals. We'll also explore how celebrating every small win might inadvertently reduce the sense of urgency required to tackle more substantial challenges. Chapter 18: The Social Media Effect. Atomic Habits became immensely popular partly due to its simplicity and practical advice, making it easily shareable on social media. However, this very popularity may have contributed to oversimplification when the book's core messages are condensed into catchy quotes or quick tips. This chapter will analyze how social media culture has influenced the reception of Atomic Habits and discuss whether this phenomenon dilutes the book's deeper insights. We'll also examine how the rise of productivity content online may encourage a superficial understanding of habit formation. Chapter 25: Habits and the Loss of Spontaneity. One potential downside of rigid habit formation is the loss of spontaneity and creativity. When life becomes too structured, it may hinder the organic, unplanned moments that foster creativity and joy. In this chapter, we will examine the balance between routine and spontaneity, questioning whether the pursuit of habit mastery might inadvertently stifle the unpredictable aspects of human experience that make life vibrant and meaningful. Chapter 21. The psychological burden of perfectionism. One of the subtle messages within Atomic Habits is the idea of continuous self-improvement. While this can be motivating, it also risks fostering perfectionism. The pursuit of flawless routines and consistent habits might pressure individuals into feeling inadequate when they fall short. In this chapter, we will explore how the relentless quest for self-optimization can paradoxically lead to lower self-esteem and burnout. We will examine the psychological effects of aiming for perfection and discuss alternative approaches that balance growth with self-acceptance. Chapter 22. Individual differences and habit formation. Atomic Habits largely presents a one-size-fits-all model for habit change. However, personality traits, cognitive styles, and individual differences significantly influence how people respond to habit-building strategies. What works for one person may not work for another, due to variations in motivation, emotional resilience, and even genetic predispositions. This chapter will critically assess whether the 4 laws are adaptable to diverse personality types, and how acknowledging individuality can lead to more tailored and effective habit change strategies. Chapter 20. The Paradox of Small Wins. James Clear's philosophy emphasizes the accumulation of small wins to achieve significant transformations. While this approach can build momentum, it may also lead to complacency when people mistake small progress for substantial change. In this chapter, we will discuss how focusing too much on minor achievements can sometimes distract from long-term goals. We'll also explore how celebrating every small win might inadvertently reduce the sense of urgency required to tackle more substantial challenges. Chapter 22. The Social Media Effect. Atomic Habits became immensely popular, partly due to its simplicity and practical advice, making it easily shareable on social media. However, this very popularity may have contributed to oversimplification when the book's core messages are condensed into catchy quotes or quick tips. This chapter will analyze how social media culture has influenced the reception of Atomic Habits and discuss whether this phenomenon dilutes the book's deeper insights. We'll also examine how the rise of productivity content online may encourage a superficial understanding of habit formation. Chapter 45. Habits and the Loss of Spontaneity. One potential downside of rigid habit formation is the loss of spontaneity and creativity. When life becomes too structured, it may hinder the organic, unplanned moments that foster creativity and joy. Chapter 20. The Science Behind Habit. Stacking. One of the most popular concepts from Atomic Habits is habit stacking, linking a new habit to an existing one. While this technique is praised for its simplicity, it's important to critically assess its scientific foundation and practical application. In this chapter, we will examine how habit stacking works from a psychological perspective, exploring both its strengths and limitations. We will discuss cases where habit stacking might fail and why some individuals find it challenging to maintain linked behaviors over time. Chapter 27. The Economic Perspective on Habit Building. While Atomic Habits focuses on personal growth, it's worth considering the economic implications of habit formation. Businesses have long exploited habitual behaviors to increase consumer loyalty. How do CLEAR's principles align with marketing strategies that encourage repetitive consumer actions? This chapter will discuss the intersection of habit formation and economic behavior, analyzing how companies may capitalize on routines to enhance brand loyalty. We'll also explore whether the commercialization of habit-building methods compromises the authenticity of personal change. Chapter 8: Motivation versus Discipline. Atomic Habits often emphasizes creating environments that make good habits easier to maintain. While this strategy can reduce reliance on willpower, it might inadvertently downplay the importance of discipline. Motivation is often fleeting, but discipline is what sustains habits when enthusiasm fades. In this chapter, we will compare motivation-driven habit formation with discipline-oriented approaches, discussing which strategy is more effective in the long term. We'll analyze real-world examples to determine whether Atomic Habits offers a balanced perspective. Chapter 29: The Psychology of Identity Change. One of the most profound ideas in Atomic Habits is that true behavior change is rooted in identity transformation. CLEAR argues that habits should be tied to the person you want to become, rather than just the outcome you desire. This chapter will delve deeper into the psychology behind identity-based habits, examining whether CLEAR's approach aligns with established theories of self-identity and personal transformation. We'll also discuss how linking habits to identity can both empower and limit growth, depending on how flexible that identity is. Chapter 20: The Cultural Appeal of Atomic Habits. Why has Atomic Habits become so influential across diverse audiences? Part of its appeal lies in its universal message of self-betterment and pragmatic advice. However, the book's formulaic simplicity may not fully resonate with those facing complex socio-cultural challenges. Chapter 20:21: The Role of Environment in Sustaining Habits. While Atomic Habits highlights the importance of shaping the environment to make habits easier, it often overlooks the dynamic nature of environmental changes. Life transitions, moving to a new city, or changes in work routines can disrupt well-established habits, no matter how ingrained they seem. In this chapter, we will explore how adaptive strategies can help maintain habits despite environmental shifts. We will also critique CLEAR's approach for underestimating the challenges that arise when external factors suddenly change. Chapter 22: The Myth of Full Control. Atomic Habits emphasizes taking control of one's habits to shape one's destiny. However, this message can sometimes lead to the unrealistic expectation that we have complete control over our behaviors. Factors like mental health, socioeconomic status, and unforeseen life events often influence our ability to build or maintain habits. This chapter will critically assess the balance between personal responsibility and external influences. We will explore how attributing all success or failure to personal effort might overlook deeper systemic or psychological factors. Chapter 23: The Oversimplification of Complex Behaviors. James Clear's approach is undeniably practical, but its simplicity might reduce complex human behaviors to overly mechanistic processes. Not all habits can be formed by following the 4 laws, especially those that involve emotional depth or psychological resistance. This chapter will challenge the notion that all behaviors are malleable through small, consistent changes. We'll discuss scenarios where Clear's methods might fail to address the deeper emotional roots of certain behaviors. Chapter 20, Atomic Habits as a Cultural Phenomenon. Beyond its practical advice, Atomic Habits has become a cultural phenomenon, often seen as a modern self-help Bible. Its influence extends beyond personal development into corporate training, educational strategies, and even lifestyle branding. We will analyze how the book's popularity reflects broader societal desires for control, and efficiency in an increasingly chaotic world. This chapter will discuss whether the success of Atomic Habits reveals more about contemporary culture than about the inherent value of its methods. Chapter 25. Balancing routine with flexibility. A potential drawback of Clear's habit-centric approach is the risk of rigidity. While routines can be empowering, they can also become stifling if applied too strictly. Life is unpredictable, and an overly structured approach may leave little room for adaptation. Chapter 41. The Pitfall of Quantifying Every Habit. Atomic Habits frequently emphasizes measurable progress as a way to track habit development. While quantification can be motivating, it may also lead to an obsessive focus on numbers rather than genuine improvement. This chapter will discuss the potential drawbacks of turning personal growth into a numerical game. We'll examine how over-quantification can lead to stress, reduced intrinsic motivation, and a detachment from the true purpose of building habits. Chapter 2. When habit change becomes identity loss, one of the core messages of Atomic Habits is to align habits with one's identity. However, changing too many habits simultaneously might result in an identity crisis, where individuals feel detached from their former selves. This chapter will explore how drastic habit changes can sometimes disrupt one's sense of self. We'll discuss how to pace personal growth to ensure that new habits enhance rather than erase personal identity. Chapter 23. The Role of Willpower Visited. Clear argues that building good habits reduces the need for willpower. However, this perspective may inadvertently minimize the role of willpower in maintaining habits during challenging times. We will re-examine the concept of willpower, analyzing when and why it remains essential even after habits are formed. The chapter will include insights from psychological studies on willpower and long-term behavioral change. Chapter 12. The Unintended Consequences of Hyperproductivity. Atomic Habits encourages optimizing one's day-to-day routines for greater efficiency. However, this mindset might inadvertently lead to a life dominated by routine, where every moment is scheduled for productivity. This chapter will discuss how hyperproductivity can impact mental health and personal satisfaction. We'll also explore how allowing unstructured time can foster creativity and deeper human connections. Chapter 44. The Cultural Bias of Self-Improvement. While Atomic Habits is rooted in a Western mindset focused on individual achievement, not all cultures view self-optimization in the same way. In collectivist societies, habits might be shaped more by communal values than personal aspirations. Chapter 47. The Danger of Oversimplifying Behavioral Change. Atomic Habits tends to present habit formation as a linear, straightforward process. However, human behavior is often far more complex, influenced by emotions, trauma, and unpredictable life events. This chapter will critically examine the limitations of reducing behavioral change to a series of simple steps. We will discuss how complex emotions and past experiences can complicate habit formation, requiring more nuanced, and individualized approaches. Chapter 7. When habits become a form of escapism. In the quest for self-improvement, some individuals might use habits as a way to avoid deeper personal issues. By focusing on constant productivity or routine, they might neglect addressing underlying emotional or psychological challenges. This chapter will explore how habits can sometimes mask deeper struggles, creating a false sense of progress while unresolved issues remain. We will discuss how to differentiate between healthy routines and avoidance mechanisms. Chapter 8. The emotional cost of habit failure. While Atomic Habits emphasizes the importance of consistency, it often downplays the emotional impact of failure. Not meeting habit goals can lead to feelings of guilt, self-blame, or even identity questioning, especially if the habits are closely tied to one's self-concept. We will explore strategies to build resilience when habits fail and discuss the importance of self-compassion in the habit-building journey. This chapter will challenge the notion that success and failure are purely a matter of consistent effort. Chapter 20. The risk of self-surveillance. One of the key strategies in Atomic Habits is tracking progress to reinforce good behaviors. However, constant self-monitoring can sometimes lead to anxiety, particularly if individuals become overly fixated on metrics and progress. This chapter will delve into the psychological effects of self-surveillance, discussing how an obsession with tracking can detract from the joy of spontaneous accomplishments. We will also explore alternatives to rigid habit tracking that focus on qualitative rather than purely quantitative success. Chapter L. Re-evaluating Atomic Habits in a post-pandemic world. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted daily routines worldwide, highlighting the fragile nature of habits shaped solely by stable environments. As people adapted to new realities, the rigid application of Atomic Habits principles sometimes proved inadequate. This chapter will discuss how post-pandemic life challenges the book's fundamental assumptions about habit consistency. We will analyze whether the principles still hold value in a world that increasingly demands flexibility and adaptability. Chapter L. The intersection of habit formation and mental health. Atomic Habits focuses heavily on actionable steps to form habits, but it rarely addresses how mental health challenges can hinder progress. Conditions like depression, anxiety, or ADHD can significantly impact one's ability to build and sustain routines. This chapter will discuss how mental health issues intersect with habit formation, highlighting how traditional advice may not apply universally. We will explore adaptive strategies for those struggling with mental well-being while pursuing personal growth. Chapter L. The illusion of control through habit. Mastery. There is a pervasive notion in Atomic Habits that mastering habits equals mastering one's life. However, this sense of control can be deceptive, leading individuals to blame themselves when habits fail despite external factors. In this chapter, we will critically analyze the psychological burden of feeling in control, discussing how unexpected challenges can derail even the most disciplined individuals. We'll examine how to maintain self-compassion when plans don't go as intended. Chapter L. The social media trap of habit perfection. In the age of social media, showcasing perfect routines and productivity hacks has become a trend. Atomic Habits, while practical, can inadvertently contribute to a culture of perfectionism where minor setbacks feel like personal failures. This chapter will explore the influence of social media on habit perception examining how curated online success stories can distort realistic expectations. We will also discuss how to develop a healthier mindset when consuming content about self-improvement. Chapter Live: The Ethics of Self-Optimization. The drive to constantly optimize every aspect of life, as advocated by Atomic Habits, raises ethical questions. Does this pursuit unintentionally endorse a mindset where one's value is equated with efficiency and output? This chapter will reflect on the philosophical implications of self-optimization, questioning whether striving for continuous improvement always leads to a better quality of life. We will also discuss how to balance personal growth with contentment and self-acceptance. Chapter LV: Habits versus Creativity, a Balancing Act. Creativity often thrives in spontaneity and freedom from routine. Yet Atomic Habits promote structured, repeatable actions as the cornerstone of success. This focus might unintentionally suppress creative thinking by fostering repetitive behaviors. We will discuss the tension between habit formation and creative exploration, highlighting how to maintain a balance where habits support rather than hinder creative expression. The chapter will include insights from creative professionals who balance structure with innovation. Chapter LV: When habits become an obsession. While forming habits can lead to positive change, an obsessive focus on perfecting every aspect of one's life through habits can become counterproductive. Some individuals may develop compulsive tendencies where the pursuit of ideal habits leads to stress and anxiety rather than growth. This chapter will examine how to recognize when habit formation becomes unhealthy. We'll discuss the signs of obsession and how to approach habit building with a balanced mindset that prioritizes well-being over perfection. Chapter LV: The Economic Implications of Habit Marketing. Atomic Habits has spurred a wave of productivity tools, apps, and workshops promising to help people build better routines. While these resources can be beneficial, they also raise questions about commercialization and the commodification of personal growth. This chapter will critique how the habit-building industry capitalizes on people's desire for self-improvement, sometimes overselling the simplicity of habit change while underestimating deeper issues. We'll also discuss how to discern between practical tools and those that exploit insecurities. Chapter LV: Why Atomic Habits Might Not Work for Everyone. Despite its popularity, not every reader finds success with the methods outlined in Atomic Habits. Personal differences in motivation, lifestyle, and cognitive processing mean that a one-size-fits-all approach may not be universally effective. In this chapter, we will explore why some individuals struggle to implement the book's advice, examining how personality traits, mental health conditions, and unique life circumstances can affect outcomes. We will also suggest alternative frameworks that may be more adaptable for diverse audiences. Chapter LX: The Paradox of Habit Independence. One of the book's core messages is that habits should become automatic, freeing up cognitive space for more important tasks. However, this can sometimes result in a lack of conscious engagement with daily actions, leading to a feeling of detachment from one's own routines. This chapter will discuss the paradox of habit independence, how achieving automaticity can make life feel mechanical and devoid of spontaneity. We will explore how to remain mindful while maintaining beneficial habits. Chapter LX: Rethinking Success Through the Lens of Habit. Building Atomic Habits often frames success as the sum of small, consistent actions. However, life's unpredictability means that even well-maintained habits don't always lead to desired outcomes. This final chapter will challenge the notion that success is purely the result of disciplined routines. We will explore stories of individuals who achieved great things despite irregular habits and discuss the importance of flexibility, passion, and perseverance beyond structured habit formation. Chapter L1: Navigating Habit Fatigue. Over time, the repetition of the same habits can lead to a phenomenon known as habit fatigue, where once motivating routines become burdensome or monotonous. Atomic Habits emphasizes consistency, but it rarely addresses how to refresh or reinvent habits that have lost their appeal. This chapter will explore strategies to combat habit fatigue, including introducing small variations, setting periodic challenges, and allowing room for flexibility without sacrificing consistency. We'll also discuss how to recognize when a habit needs to be reevaluated or replaced altogether. Chapter L2: The Impact of Socioeconomic Factors on Habit Formation. While Atomic Habits provides universal strategies, it often overlooks the reality that socioeconomic factors heavily influence one's ability to maintain consistent routines. Access to resources, social support, and financial stability all play a crucial role in successful habit building. This chapter will critically analyze how privilege and economic disparity impact the feasibility of habit mastery. We will explore how individuals from diverse backgrounds can adapt habit strategies to fit their unique circumstances. Chapter L3: The Limits of Incremental Change. Clear's emphasis on small, continuous improvements can be highly effective, but there are situations where drastic change is necessary. Relying solely on incremental progress may delay or undermine significant transformations needed in areas like career shifts or personal growth. In this chapter, we will examine when bold, decisive action is more appropriate than gradual adjustment. We'll include case studies highlighting individuals who made substantial life changes by taking calculated risks rather than adhering to small habit shifts. Chapter L4: How Atomic Habits Handles Relapse. The book briefly touches on habit failure, but does not extensively address relapse, returning to old, unproductive habits after periods of progress. Relapse is a natural part of behavioral change, yet Atomic Habits' focus on consistency can inadvertently create a sense of shame when setbacks occur. This chapter will offer a more compassionate perspective on relapse, emphasizing resilience and the importance of self-forgiveness. We will discuss how to view setbacks as learning opportunities rather than personal failures. Chapter L5: Challenging the Productivity Obsessions. Atomic Habits aligns closely with productivity culture, often equating habitual efficiency with personal success. However, this mindset can foster a toxic relationship with time, where every moment feels like an opportunity cost. This chapter will question whether optimizing every aspect of life genuinely leads to fulfillment, or whether it traps individuals in a relentless cycle of self-improvement. We'll explore how to balance the desire for productivity with the need for rest, spontaneity, and reflection. Chapter L6: The Emotional Impact of Habit Disruption. When a well-established habit is disrupted, whether due to illness, life changes, or unforeseen circumstances, the psychological impact can be profound. Atomic Habits tends to underplay how losing a routine can affect self-esteem and motivation. This chapter will examine the emotional consequences of habit disruption and how to rebuild routines without falling into self-blame. We will discuss practical strategies to reframe setbacks as opportunities for growth rather than failures. Chapter L7: Overcoming the plateau effect. One of the challenges in long-term habit building is encountering plateaus, periods where progress seems to stagnate despite consistent effort. Atomic Habits mentions the importance of perseverance, but it lacks depth on how to overcome these psychological barriers. In this chapter, we will discuss the science behind habit plateaus, including how the brain adapts to routines. We'll provide actionable tips to reignite motivation and push through periods of stagnation. Chapter also 18, Individual versus Collective Habit Formation. While Atomic Habits focuses on personal habits, it rarely addresses how collective habits, those formed in groups or communities, function differently. Group dynamics can significantly influence individual consistency, both positively and negatively. This chapter will explore how shared environments and social contexts impact habit formation. We will look at how collective habits can either support or hinder personal growth and how to navigate communal routines effectively. Chapter 19, the overemphasis on consistency. While consistency is a cornerstone of Atomic Habits, overemphasis can sometimes lead to rigidity. In real life, flexibility and the ability to adapt habits to changing circumstances are equally vital. This chapter will discuss how being overly consistent can become counterproductive. We'll explore how to balance dedication with adaptability to maintain sustainable progress. Chapter 6, Habit Building in Different Life Stages. Different stages of life, such as adolescence, parenthood, and retirement, pose unique challenges to habit formation. Atomic Habits offers general advice that may not be universally applicable across these diverse life phases. This chapter will address how life transitions affect habits and how to adapt strategies to fit evolving needs. We will include stories of individuals who successfully maintained or reinvented habits through major life changes. Chapter 201, When Habits Become Identity Traps. Sometimes habits become so ingrained that they begin to define one's identity. While Atomic Habits encourages integrating habits into one's sense of self, this can lead to identity traps where personal worth is tied solely to habit maintenance. This chapter will explore how to maintain a flexible identity while building consistent habits. We will discuss the importance of allowing personal growth beyond rigid self-definitions rooted in routines. Chapter 2, The Problem with One-Size-Fits-All Advice. Atomic Habits provides a structured approach to building routines, but this one-size-fits-all model often fails to account for individual differences. Factors such as personality, lifestyle, and cognitive processing significantly affect how habits are formed and maintained. This chapter will critique the generalized advice given in the book, emphasizing the need for personalized strategies. We'll offer practical tips for tailoring habit techniques to individual circumstances. Chapter 3, The Myth of Effortless Change. One of the appealing aspects of Atomic Habits is the promise that small changes lead to big results. However, this narrative can be misleading, as real change often requires sustained effort, discomfort, and persistence beyond mere habit tweaks. This chapter will examine how the pursuit of effortless change can set unrealistic expectations. We will discuss how embracing challenge and resilience can lead to more meaningful and sustainable transformations. Chapter 4, When Efficiency Undermines Human Connection. The pursuit of habit efficiency can sometimes lead to neglecting social relationships. In prioritizing productivity and routine, individuals might inadvertently distance themselves from loved ones or miss opportunities for meaningful interactions. This chapter will address the balance between self-improvement and maintaining strong social bonds. We will explore how to ensure that habits enhance rather than hinder one's connection with others. Chapter LX5: Revisiting Habit Building Through a Holistic Lens. While Atomic Habits emphasizes the power of small changes, it often isolates habits from the broader context of life experiences, emotional states, and personal values. In this concluding chapter, we will advocate for a more holistic approach to habit formation, one that integrates mental, emotional, and social well-being. We will discuss how to build habits that align with a well-rounded and fulfilling life, rather than purely focusing on efficiency. Chapter X: The Role of Intuition in Habit Building. While Atomic Habits focuses on structured and logical steps to develop habits, it largely neglects the role of intuition and personal insight in choosing which habits are worth forming. Sometimes listening to inner instincts can reveal what truly aligns with one's deeper aspirations. This chapter will explore how intuitive decision-making can complement structured habit strategies. We will discuss practical ways to balance logic with intuition when designing routines that feel more authentic and meaningful. Chapter LX7: Navigating Guilt from Habit Failure. When habits fail to stick, the emotional aftermath can include guilt and self-blame. Atomic Habits emphasizes consistency, but it does not deeply address the psychological consequences of perceived failure. This chapter will focus on how to cope with the guilt that arises when habits don't last. We will offer strategies for reframing failure as a natural part of growth and discuss how to maintain self-compassion in the habit-building journey. Chapter LX: Contextual Habits: Adjusting to Different Environments. Atomic Habits primarily discusses forming habits in stable environments. However, life often presents changing circumstances. Moving to a new city, starting a new job, or experiencing a major life event. These changes can disrupt even the most consistent routines. This chapter will cover how to adapt habits to new contexts, emphasizing flexibility and creativity when routines are challenged by external changes. We'll include practical techniques for maintaining core habits while adapting to new surroundings. Chapter LK9: Cultural Perspectives on Habit Formation. Atomic Habits is deeply rooted in Western ideals of self-improvement and productivity. However, cultural norms and values significantly influence how habits are perceived and maintained. This chapter will examine how different cultural perspectives shape the understanding of discipline, routine, and personal growth. We will include insights from non-Western traditions that view habit formation through a communal or spiritual lens. Chapter LX: A Final Reflection on Habit and Identity. After dissecting the strengths and limitations of Atomic Habits, it is essential to reflect on the broader question: are habits the ultimate key to a fulfilling life, or just one of many tools? This chapter will synthesize the critiques and insights discussed throughout the text, encouraging readers to see habit formation not as an end in itself, but as a dynamic process intertwined with personal growth, identity, and resilience. This final reflection will invite readers to approach habits with both ambition and mindfulness, recognizing the importance of adaptability, self-compassion, and authenticity in their journey towards self-improvement.